The price of truth. The neutral space station Haven 7 hung in the void between human and Catherian space like a monument to impossible hope. 2 months had passed since the research station incident, and the evidence Theron had gathered, combined, with intelligence Jace had quietly provided, had forced both governments to the negotiating table once again. Now, as Jace watched diplomats from 12 species file into the station's central conference chamber, he wondered if he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. Second thoughts? Captain Luna Reeves asked, settling into the seat beside him in the observation gallery. His childhood friend had grown into a sharp-eyed intelligence officer, her auburn hair pulled back in regulation style, her expression professionally neutral. Third and fourth thoughts, Jace admitted. This feels too easy, Luna. Too convenient. Peace talks usually are convenient. That's why they call them talks instead of wars. She studied the assembled delegates below. Though I'll admit the security situation has everyone on edge, that was an understatement. Haven 7 crawled with security personnel from every major power, their weapons supposedly disabled by the station's neutral field generators. But Jace had learned to read the spaces between official statements, and what he saw there made his medic's instincts scream warnings. Admiral Regent Voss is here, Luna observed, nodding toward the human delegation. That's unusual. He usually sends subordinates to these things. Jace knew why Voss had come personally. The Admiral had been Blackwood's superior, and when her involvement in the illegal experiments came to light, he'd managed to distance himself just enough to avoid direct implication. But men like Voss, career officers who'd built their power on perpetual conflict, didn't attend peace talks to make peace. The Catherian delegation entered with their characteristic fluid grace. Jace found himself scanning their faces, looking for familiar amber eyes, but Zara wasn't among the official representatives. Instead, he recognized war singer Cathara, whose reputation for ruthless efficiency matched Voss's hunger for war. She's beautiful, Luna murmured, following his gaze. For an alien. Beauty's cultural, Luna. Besides, I don't think she's here to make friends. No, she's here to make peace. Supposedly. Luna's expression darkened. Though between you and me, intelligence suggests both sides have elements that would prefer this conference to fail dramatically. The formal proceedings began with the usual diplomatic theater, translated speeches about mutual understanding and shared futures. Jace found his attention drifting to the security stations positioned throughout the chamber. Too many guards, too many suspicious glances, too many hands resting near weapons that should have been disabled. His compad buzzed with an encrypted message. Medical Bay, Level 3, come alone. Jace's pulse quickened. He'd wondered if Zara was somewhere, on the station, working in whatever shadows Catherian intelligence cast. Now he knew. I need to check on something, he told Luna. The talks just started. Medical emergency. You know how it is. He made his way through the station's corridors, past security checkpoints that scanned him with mechanical thoroughness. The medical bay on Level 3 was a secondary facility, smaller than the main trauma center but better equipped for discrete operations. Zara waited in the surgical suite, but she wasn't alone. Feline grace wrapped around deadly purpose. She stood, guard over a figure strapped to the examination table. A human in intelligence service blacks, unconscious and bleeding from what looked like interrogation wounds. What happened? Jace asked, moving to examine the prisoner. He tried to kill me, Zara said simply. When I defended myself, he proved surprisingly fragile. The man was alive, but barely. Neural disruptor burns, trauma to the torso, signs of systematic torture. Someone had worked him over professionally before sending him after Zara. Who is he? Lieutenant Commander Marcus Vale, Blackwood's replacement. Zara's voice held contempt. He came to deliver a message: surrender myself, for war crimes tribunal, or watch the peace talks become a massacre. Jace's hand stilled on his scanner. Massacre? Both sides have planted operatives among the security staff. When the shooting starts, it will appear that Catherian extremists attacked the human delegation first. The response will be overwhelming. And you believe him. I believe what I have seen. She activated a holo display showing detailed schematics of the station. Weapons caches here, here, and here. Shaped charges positioned to maximize casualties. Communication jammers to prevent calls for help. This was planned months ago. Jace stared at the evidence, his mind racing. How many people know? Too few. The extremists on both sides have spent years placing their people in key positions. Warsinger Cathara leads the Catherian faction. Your Admiral Voss commands the human side. We have to warn someone. Who? Zara's amber eyes burned with frustrated fury. The station commander takes orders from Voss. Catherian security reports to Cathara. The delegates themselves are protected by the very people planning to kill them. Vale stirred on the table, consciousness returning. His eyes opened, unfocused, then sharpened as he recognized Zara. You're too late, he whispered. It's already in motion. The charges are set. The communications are compromised. In 2 hours, this station becomes a tomb, and the war begins again in earnest. There has to be a way to stop it, Jace said. Vale laughed, blood speckling his lips. Stop it, medic. This is bigger than one station. We've got weapons contracts worth trillions, territory disputes that have been cooking for decades, and populations that have been taught to hate each other for a generation. Peace is bad for business. Zara's blade whispered against Vale's throat. Then perhaps we should remove you from the equation. Wait. Jace caught her wrist. He's more useful alive. Vale, you said the communications are compromised. That means there's a way to bypass the jammers, right? Emergency protocols? Vale's expression shifted, calculating. You want to make a deal? I want to save lives. What's it going to cost? Full immunity. New identity. Transport off station before the fireworks start. Done, Jace said, ignoring Zara's sharp look. But first, you help us stop this. The next hour passed in a blur of desperate preparation. Vale's information led them to the station's secondary communications array, hidden in a maintenance section, that the saboteurs had overlooked. While Zara worked to bypass the security locks, Jace prepared to broadcast a warning to every ship in the system. There, Zara said, as the locks disengaged. But we will have perhaps 10 minutes before they trace the signal and cut us off. Then we better make them count. Jace activated the emergency broadcast system, sending coded warnings to fleet commands on both sides, while Zara transmitted the evidence they'd gathered to every news service in the sector. The truth spilled out in carefully documented detail. Names, dates, financial records, communication logs that painted a picture of conspiracy spanning both governments. The response was immediate and chaotic. Emergency alerts flooded the station's communication channels as ship commanders demanded confirmation. Intelligence services began damage control, and the carefully orchestrated massacre ground to a halt as its architects realized their plan had been exposed. But victory came with a price. Security teams are converging on our position, Zara reported, monitoring the station's internal sensors, both human and Catherian. We have minutes before they breach the compartment. The escape pods, compromised. They will shoot us before we reach them. She turned to face him, her expression calm despite the approaching storm. Jace, there is something you must know. Tell me later. Right now we need to. There may not be a later. She stepped closer, her hand finding his. My people have declared me a traitor for working with humans. Yours will do the same to you for working with me. We are alone now, caught between two worlds that want us dead. The sound of cutting tools echoed through the corridor outside. Soon, very soon, their sanctuary would be breached. I don't regret it, Jace said quietly. Any of it. Nor do I. Zara's amber eyes held something he'd never seen there before. Vulnerability, beneath all that deadly grace. In another life, perhaps we could have been more than allies. Who says we can't be more than allies in this one? The cutting tools fell silent. In the sudden quiet, they could hear the whisper of armored boots on deck plating. Whatever happens, next, Zara said, know that you gave me something I thought lost forever. What's that? Hope. The door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and molten metal. Security forces from both species poured through the gap, weapons raised, voices shouting contradictory orders in multiple languages. But the damage was already done. The truth was out, spreading through the galaxy at light speed, and no amount of violence could put it back. The peace talks would continue, because now everyone knew what the alternative really cost. As Jace raised his hands in surrender, he caught Zara's eye one last time. She nodded slightly, a warrior's acknowledgement between equals, and he knew that whatever came next, they had chosen the right side of history. Even if history would probably try to kill them for it. Beyond the stars 5 years later, the morning sun of New Harmony cast long shadows across the colony's main settlement. Jace stood in the doorway of his medical clinic, watching human and Catherian children chase each other through the market square with the careless joy of a generation that had never known war. The peace had held, though not without cost. The evidence he and Zara had broadcast from Haven 7 had triggered investigations, trials, and a fundamental restructuring of both governments. Admiral Voss had died in prison, officially of natural causes. Warsinger Cathara had vanished into the deep territories, her followers scattered but not eliminated, and some wounds, Jace had learned, took longer to heal than others. Dr. Thorne? His assistant, a young Catherian named Fen, appeared beside him. Your 10 o'clock appointment is here. Jace nodded, forcing his attention back to the present. The clinic served both species equally, a small symbol of the larger integration happening across the frontier worlds. Most days, that felt like victory enough. The patient was Ambassador Orion Cross, the human diplomat who'd helped negotiate the final peace accords. Cross looked older than his 60 years, the stress of building something new from the ashes of the old having carved deep lines around his eyes. Just a routine checkup, Cross said, settling onto the examination table. Though at my age, I suppose nothing's truly routine. Jace ran his scanner, noting the stress markers that never quite faded from former warriors turned peacemakers. Everything looks good. How are the integration talks going? Better than expected. Worse than hoped. Cross smiled ruefully. Elder, Whisperwind thinks we're moving too fast. Half the colony council thinks we're moving too slow. But that's democracy for you. Nobody's completely happy, so we must be doing something right. Through the clinic's window, Jace could see the spaceport where ships from a dozen systems brought supplies, settlers, and the occasional visitor from the old worlds. Most arrivals were logged and expected. Some were not. Speaking of unexpected developments, Cross continued, we had an interesting arrival this morning. Catherian transport, unscheduled, requesting emergency medical assistance. Jace's hands stilled on his instruments. What kind of assistance? The kind that requires a doctor with experience treating both species. The kind that might involve old friends and older enemies. The ambassador's meaning was clear. Jace finished the examination quickly, his mind already racing ahead to possibilities he'd tried not to think about for 5 years. The transport waited in the medical bay at the spaceport, its hull scarred by weapons fire and atmospheric entry damage. Commander Sage Morrison, the colony's security chief, met Jace at the entrance. We've got 3 Catherians aboard, Morrison reported. 2 are stable, minor injuries from what looks like a running firefight. The third, she shook her head. She's in bad shape. Multiple gunshot wounds, neural trauma, signs of prolonged torture. Her companions say she's been running for weeks. Names? They're not talking. But the ship's registry traces back to a merchant vessel that went missing near the Broken Reaches 3 months ago. That's Cathara territory. Jace's pulse quickened. The Broken Reaches were lawless space, home to war criminals and extremists from both sides who'd refused to accept the peace. If someone had escaped from there, the medical bay's sterile lighting revealed the full extent of the damage. 2 Catherian males sat on examination tables, their injuries treated, but their eyes holding the hollow look of survivors. Between them on the surgical table lay a figure that made Jace's breath catch. Zara. 5 years had changed her. Her violet skin bore new scars, Her hair was shorter, streaked with premature silver, but her amber eyes opened as he approached, and the recognition that passed between them felt like coming home after a lifetime of exile. "Hello, Jace," she whispered. "Hello yourself." He activated his scanner, his professional training taking over even as his heart hammered against his ribs. "What did they do to you?" "Cathara's people found me 6 months ago. They wanted names, locations, details about the peace network we built." Her voice was steady despite the obvious pain. "I gave them nothing useful." The scanner revealed the full scope of her injuries. 3 bullet wounds, neural disruptor damage, signs of systematic torture designed to break rather than kill. Someone had wanted her to suffer. "Why?" he asked, beginning to prep surgical instruments. "The war's over. The trials are finished. What could they possibly gain?" "Revenge," said one of her companions, a scarred veteran whose amber eyes burned with suppressed fury, "and a chance to restart what we helped end." "There are rumors," the other added. "Weapons caches hidden on the outer worlds, sleeper agents waiting for activation. Cathara believes that if she can eliminate enough of the peacekeepers, the old hatreds will resurface." Jace worked steadily, extracting bullet fragments and repairing neural pathways while Zara drifted in and out of consciousness. The surgery took 6 hours, and by the end his hands were shaking with exhaustion and something deeper, the fear of losing something precious that he'd only just found again. When she woke, 3 days later, he was sitting beside her bed reading patient files and trying to pretend he hadn't spent every free moment watching her breathe. "Am I going to live?" she asked. "Probably. Though you'll have some interesting scars to add to your collection." She tried to sit up, winced, and settled back against the pillows. "My companions?" "Safe. Morrison's people are debriefing them, but gently. They'll have asylum here as long as they need it." "And Cathara?" "Still out there, still dangerous." Jay set down his files and met her gaze. "Zara, why did you come here? You could have gone anywhere in the galaxy, sought help from a dozen other sources." Her amber eyes held depths he was still learning to read. "Because this is where you are." The simple honesty of it hit him like a physical blow. 5 years of separation, of wondering what had happened to her, of trying to build a new life while part of his heart remained frozen in the moment they'd been captured on Haven 7. "I never stopped looking for you," he said quietly. "After the trials, after they let me go, I searched every database, followed every lead. It was like you'd vanished completely. I had to. The peace was fragile, and my presence would have endangered it. Better to let Zara Velthan die officially, and work from the shadows." She reached for his hand, her fingers pale against his darker skin. "But I never stopped thinking about you, about us, about what we might have been, what we might still be." Her smile was the same fierce expression he remembered from their first meeting, but softer now, touched with something that looked like hope. "I am a wanted war criminal, Jace. My enemies will never stop hunting me. Any life we build together will be built under that shadow. I've gotten pretty good at building things under shadows. This whole colony exists because people like us refused to let the darkness win. And if Cathara comes for me? If her followers decide that New Harmony needs to be made an example?" Jace considered the question seriously. Outside the medical bay, life continued. Children playing, farmers tending crops, engineers building the infrastructure of peace. All of it fragile, all of it worth protecting. "Then we do what we've always done," he said finally. "We heal what can be healed, and we fight what needs fighting. Together." The attack came 2 weeks later, just as Zara had feared. Cathara's followers struck at dawn, hitting the spaceport and the government complex simultaneously. But they found New Harmony better prepared than expected. The colonies integrated. Defense Force, human and Catharian working side by side, repelled the assault with minimal casualties. Cathara herself appeared in the clinic's doorway as the fighting raged outside, her elegant features twisted by years of hatred and exile. "Little traitor," she hissed in the old tongue. "Did you think this human's world could hide you forever?" Zara stood between the war singer and Jace's patients, a mixed group of humans and Catharians who'd taken shelter in the medical bay. Her wounds were barely healed, but her stance was that of a warrior prepared to make her final stand. "I think," Zara said calmly, "that some wars end not with victory, but with people choosing to stop fighting." Cathara raised her weapon, an old military disruptor that would kill everyone in the room. And for a moment, the future balanced on the edge of ancient hatred. Then Jace stepped up beside Zara, medkit in one hand, scanner in the other, tools of healing rather than war. "She's right," he said. "This ends when we decide it ends, when we choose to heal instead of hurt, when we remember that the person standing across from us is someone's child, someone's hope for the future." Behind them, human and Catherian voices joined together, patients who'd found common ground in shared vulnerability, children who'd grown up seeing diversity as strength rather than threat. Cathara's weapon wavered. For just a moment, her expression showed something other than rage, confusion perhaps, or the echo of who she'd been before war consumed her. Then the moment passed. She snarled and raised the disruptor again, but Elder Whisper Wind's voice cut through the tension like a blade through silk. "Enough." The ancient Catherian stood in the doorway, flanked by colony security forces. Her presence filled the room with the weight of accumulated wisdom and absolute authority. "War Singer Cathara," she said formally, "by the authority vested in me by the Council of Winds, I charge you with crimes against the peace. Surrender your weapons." The standoff stretched for heartbeats that felt like hours. Then Cathara's shoulders sagged, and the disruptor clattered to the floor. "It was supposed to be glorious," she whispered. "The war, the victory, the honor. Instead we get this." "This," Elder Whisperwind said gently, "is what victory actually looks like. Not conquest, but coexistence. Not domination, but cooperation." As security forces led Cathara away, Jace felt Zara's hand find his. Around them, the clinic returned to its normal rhythm, healing, helping, building something better from the pieces of what had been broken. "So," Zara said quietly. "What happens now?" Jace looked around the medical bay, at the mixed group of patients who'd stood together when it mattered, at the colony beyond where two species were slowly becoming one people. "Now we get back to work," he said. "The work of healing, the work of building, the work of proving that peace is worth fighting for." "And us?" He turned to face her fully, this warrior who'd become a healer, this enemy who'd become the other half of his soul. "Us? We write a new story, one where the medic and the soldier find their way home to each other and discover that home isn't a place. It's a choice you make every day to build something better together." Zara's smile lit up the room like a sunrise, and for the first time since the war began, Jace believed completely in the future they were building. One patient, one day, one act of compassion at a time. Outside, New Harmony's twin suns climbed toward noon, casting light on a world where former enemies had become family, and where love had proven stronger than the machinery of war. It was, Jace thought as he returned to his patients, exactly the kind of victory worth living for.